Welcome to today's Weather School for Kids. Hi everybody, I'm meteorologist Lisa Spencer. As a meteorologist, people ask me all the time, what is your favorite kind of weather? Okay, I love a sunny day. I even like a rainy day sometimes. And snow, awesome, because, who doesn't love to make a snowman? But one of my favorite kinds of weather, it's going to be a hurricane. I think they are simply fascinating. They are the most powerful weather system there is. They're huge storms, and they grow from just a tiny thunderstorm all the way up to this huge system that is, get this, on average, about 340 miles across. If you take a hurricane, pick it up, and sit it on top of the state of Tennessee, it would almost cover the entire state. The good news here in Middle Tennessee, we don't really get hurricanes per se, but sometimes we can get the wind and we can get the rain from hurricanes. Different story for anyone who lives along the coast, because you see, hurricanes live in the ocean. That's where they start. That's where they grow. Take a look at this beautiful satellite picture of a hurricane. What do you see? Well, right in the middle is the center of circulation. We call that the eye. It is so clear inside the eye. And around that, these are bands of rain and thunderstorms circulating around the outside of that hurricane. So let's talk a little bit about how they form. There's some things that have to come together to make that happen. First off, you need thunderstorms. You got to get it started. Also, you need warm water and a very light wind for a hurricane to form. Now, once they're formed, the hurricane has these huge rotating rain bands and some thunderstorms. They're rotating all around this center of circulation right here. It's a clear sky that we see. There are also some thunderstorms embedded in that. And right around the eye is what we call the eye wall. And that's where our winds are going very, very fast. As a matter of fact, those are the highest winds inside of the hurricane. We're going to talk a little bit more about hurricane formation in just a few moments. How would you like to make a hurricane? Well, at least it'll look a little bit like a hurricane. We'll call it a hurricane in a bowl. Here's what you need. We need a bowl of water, food coloring, and a big spoon to stir things up. Let's give it a try. So here's our bowl of water, our food coloring, and our big spoon. The first thing we want to do is stir our bowl of water. Now, if you've watched our Weather School for Kids on pressure, you've learned that low pressure goes around in a counterclockwise rotation. That is what a hurricane is. It's an area of low pressure. So get your bowl spinning in that counterclockwise rotation. Next thing, after we get it going really nicely, we'll drop a couple of drops of water. Watch what happens. The food coloring spreads out and it looks like a hurricane. Let's step through the formation of a hurricane once again. We'll start out with some very unstable air. Air will cool as it starts to rise with height. That will lead to convection. And when we think about convection, we're really thinking about a thunderstorm. In order for those thunderstorms to keep going, there needs to be a moist layer of air several thousand feet above the ocean. That's needed to keep those storms churning. Now, the wind speed needs to be consistent from the ocean to the top of the thunderstorm. It does need to change with height. And of course, there's the warm water. The ocean needs to be 80 degrees or above to supply energy to the storm. That warm water is like fuel for the hurricane. As this little batch of thunderstorms grows, it goes to the first stage, which is a tropical depression. That's where we have organized clouds and thunderstorms. And the circulation, well, those winds are going around less than 38 miles per hour. When it becomes a tropical depression, that's when it gets a number. As it continues to grow, it will become a tropical storm. More organized, and the winds are really starting to pick up to 38 to 73 miles per hour. And the next step, it becomes a full-fledged hurricane with those winds up to 74 miles per hour. Hurricane season officially starts on June 1st. It's a really long season. It goes all the way to November 30th. So you can think of it starting when things get warm and ending as things are getting cooler again. Let's take a look at that season and when we have the most tropical systems or hurricanes. Take a look. It starts out slow in June and the peak is going to be in September. As a matter of fact, on average, it's September 10th. And then notice how things start to die down again as we get to November. So the peak is in September. Throughout that season, we can have tropical depressions, tropical storms, and we can have hurricanes. Some of those hurricanes are stronger than others. So we have a way of measuring them. We have a scale. We call it the SaffirSimpson Scale. And that scale measures the wind, and that helps us know the potential for damage and unfortunately of loss of life when it comes to a hurricane. So let's check out this scale. It starts with 1. So category 1, we have winds that are 74 to 95 miles per hour. If the hurricane continues to grow, the winds extend up to 96 to 110 miles per hour. That's a category 2. A category 3 is considered a major hurricane with winds 111 to 129 miles per hour. And then if it continues to grow, it becomes a category 4, 130 to 156 miles per hour. And they're rare, but it can be a category 5 hurricane. And that's winds of 157 miles per hour or greater. And we consider that catastrophic. So a weaker hurricane is a category 1 or 2. It becomes a major hurricane and a category 3. That's when we see the greatest winds and unfortunately when we can have the most damage and also loss of life. And then a category 4 and category 5, those are the strongest hurricanes. So what causes all the damage with hurricanes? Well, the winds, of course, that's going to be one, but also something we call storm surge. Storm surge is really interesting. It's like a wall of water. So remember, we've got a hurricane out in the ocean, but as it moves on shore, it's pushing water on shore as well. So what happens is we find all this water being pushed up on the coast, and it is like a wall of water. So that can push sand out of the way, but that can also damage beach houses or hotels or any kind of structure that may be along the coast. Now it's time for the name game. So here's the first question. What is the difference between a typhoon, a cyclone, and a hurricane? It's all about location. It depends on where you are. In the Atlantic Basin, we call them hurricanes. In the Northwest Pacific Ocean, they're called typhoons, and in the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean, they're called cyclones, but all the same thing. Next question. Who gets to choose the names for hurricanes? It's the World Meteorological Organization that has that task. They have made 6 lists of names which they recycle every 6 years. Here is the list for 2020. Let's look for some patterns here. Notice it starts with A and goes through the alphabet, with the exception of a few letters. There are some missing, Q, X, Y, and Z, not on this list. That's because there are not that many names that start with those letters. What else do you see here? Arthur, Bertha, Cristobal, Dolly, Edward, Faye. It's male, female names that you see. And that's the pattern that they use. It hasn't always been that way. It used to be all female names, but several years ago, I guess just to make things fair, we started switching back and forth. You'll have to look at all the lists to see if you can find your name. I have found my name on the list. Now, these same names will stay on the list year after year. However, they will swap out names if there has been a catastrophic hurricane. For example, there'll never be another Katrina, never another Fran, Florence, or another Andrew. Those are all significant hurricanes that have happened over the years. So they'll just replace those names with names that come from the languages spoken in the Atlantic Basin, which would be English, Spanish, and also some French names are used as well. And that's how we end up with hurricane names. Oh, you might wonder, what happens if you run out of those names? It's happened before. Then they use the Greek alphabet. So I've got a challenge for you. How about making up your own list of names? But you have to use the pattern that we used here, starting with A, using male and female names. And maybe you can find a way to include your name as well. I would love to see your list of names and a picture of your hurricane in a bowl. You can send them to me at lspencer@wsmv.com. If you have any questions about hurricanes, send me an email about that as well. Or if you have a suggestion for a weather school for kids topic, I'd love to hear about it. If you'd like to see other weather lessons, you can check those out. My Weather School for Kids, they're all located on my YouTube channel at Lisa Spencer. Have a great day.